Hello everyone and welcome back to another adventure here on That Adventure Life. I'm Dustin.
And I'm V.
And today we are going to hike down to see the Mexican Canyon Trestle here in New Mexico.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool trestle bridge. Is it trestle and bridge?
Trestle bridge. Yeah.
Trestle bridge. It's pretty neat. You can actually see it from the viewpoint up on the main road. You can also hike from here to like the other side of the trestle. So we're doing full.
Yeah. If you look at it from the overlook, you're kind of looking down at it in a canyon. And if you do this hike, you're going to be more eye level with it and be able to see it from its level kind of stretching across the canyon.
Yeah. So it's, according to all trails, it's about 2 miles with 525 feet elevation gain. So it's not that long of a hike. So it's a good way to stretch your leg. So this is where you start. You start at this little day use area, and then you just gotta go this way, follow the route, and then get to the viewpoints right here. So pretty simple. You ready to go?
Let's do this.
Yeah.
Today's adventure begins at the Trestle Depot Recreation Area. This is located directly off of Highway 82, and if you're coming from White Sands National Park, the recreation area will be located about 0.6 of a mile past the overlook. Here you will find restrooms and maps for the hike if you would like one. And you're also able to bring your four-legged friend on this trail as long as you clean up after them and keep them on a leash. You will typically be making a right at this first fork, but we weren't in any big rush, and if you go left, it's just a short ways to the first overlook of the trail. From here you can get views that stretch all the way out to White Sands National Park. And if you haven't seen our video from White Sands National Park yet, be sure to click in the upper corner to check that one out. If you don't want to take the time to hike to this bonus overlook, don't worry, because there is another one in just a little bit with a very similar view. As soon as we got back to the junction, the trail switched from pavement to dirt, and we were going to be on dirt trails for the rest of the hike. The trail can be quite rocky at times, so if you're not a very sure-footed person, hiking poles might be a great idea, even though this is a pretty short hike. And here we are arriving at the second overlook. It gives you a pretty similar view, it's just a little bit lower. In addition to the view, this second overlook gives you a glimpse of a spot known as the Devil's Elbow. If you like history, this trail has a ton of it, and there are plenty of signs along the way that will talk about the struggles that were had while building the cloud climbing railroad. After leaving the Devil's Elbow, you're going to be hiking for about 1/8 of a mile before you get to the next point of interest, which is the S Trestle. It is going to be downhill almost the entire way out, which unfortunately means it will be uphill almost all the way back. Even though this trail can be done as an out and back, there is an option for a small additional loop, which we will be doing in this video. Since we are doing that additional loop, we won't be stopping by the S Trestle until we're on the way back. As we strolled our way through some pretty tall trees, we came to an open gate. You can either turn left at the gate or you can go through it for another small bonus hike. This short dirt path is only about 100 yards long, and it takes you to a very small trestle bridge known as Bonnie's Trestle. Bonnie is my mom's nickname, so we had to get out there and check out this little trestle. And it turns out that this little 46 by 14 foot tall bridge is one of the 51 bridges located along the cloud climbing railroad. And even though it may be small, it is tough because it is one of only 7 trestles left standing along this route. This is a short stop, and after making a wish on Bonnie's wishing rock, we continued on along our way. To get back on the main trail, you'll be making a right at the fork just on the other side of the gate. The trail is going to get pretty steep for a second. Luckily, we were doing it in dry conditions, but if you stop by to do this after a rain, you could be slipping and sliding your way down this hill. They did a pretty good job of making this trail really easy to follow with tons of signage. But there was still one part that was just a tiny bit confusing, and that was right here.
Right after you cross this little rocky patch here, things got a tiny bit confusing. You get to the sign, but it pretty much just says everything is that way. and there's a little bit of a fork right here.
So according to the paper map that we got from the beginning of the trailhead, if we want to go to the Mexican Canyon Trestle, we have to follow the T501, 501, 5001. So which is toward the right. The other one is 5001C that's going to a different trail. So stay right.
So yeah, we're going uphill.
After all of the downhill, you will be back to climbing. And even though this climb is a little bit steep, it is pretty short. Once you reach the top of this short climb, you are almost to the Mexican Canyon Trestle. There is a junction here, but it would be pretty hard to mess up. Not only is there a sign pointing towards the trestle bridge, but there's also a private property sign. And here we are at the Mexican Canyon Trestle. You used to be able to walk on top of it, but unfortunately that is not an option anymore. It sure would be cool to take a time machine all the way back to 1899 to watch steam-powered locomotives make their way across the canyon. This trestle served many purposes over its lifetime. In the beginning, it was mainly used to transport timber, before it eventually became a way for tourists to be transported up the mountain to visit the beautiful town of Cloudcroft. After admiring the sights for a bit, it was time to start on our way back, but we still had that little extra bonus trail to do. We did our best to savor this little bit of downhill because we knew that we had a whole lot of climbing coming up ahead. One thing you definitely need to keep your eyes peeled for are cyclists. This is a mixed-use trail, and at one point a guy on a mountain bike went flying past us. This mountain biker didn't have a bell on, and it's a good thing that we were facing towards him because otherwise we probably wouldn't have heard him coming. Here we are passing the turnoff for Bonnie's Trestle, and luckily the trail is going to flatten out a little bit. We are somewhere around 8,500 feet above sea level, and some of these hills will get you breathing heavy. We are now arriving back at the S Trestle, and as cool as it would be to see it looking like it did in the picture, unfortunately it is pretty much destroyed. There are a couple of support beams standing towards the back, but most of it is just rubble. It's too bad that it has fallen because it would be much more of a sight to see than the Mexican Canyon Trestle. It featured two 30-degree turns, and it was the longest of all the A&SM trestles at 338 feet long and 60 feet high. On the backside of the S Trestle, there is this staircase that will take you up to the Devil's Elbow. There's pretty much nothing left of the railroad here except for this canyon that was blasted out by the railroad workers. This was incredibly dangerous work, and unfortunately several of the railroad workers lost their lives over the construction of the railroad. On the other side of the Devil's Elbow, there is another beautiful lookout with a bench that will give you views out towards White Sands National Park. But since we had already seen all of that, we decided that it was time to head back towards the car. After passing more cute pups, it was time to start on the final climb of the trail. It's another steep one, but thankfully it didn't seem like it lasted all that long. Overall, I would say that if you are a railroad or a history buff, or if you're on your way from White Sands National Park to Carlsbad Caverns, this would be a good addition to your trip. I don't know if it would necessarily be worth going way out of the way for, but I am glad that we did it. We had a long drive planned this day, and it was a great way to get out and stretch our legs. And that is going to do it for our hike to the Mexican Canyon Trestle. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because that really helps out the channel. If you have any suggestions for things that you'd like to see in future videos, let us know in the comments below. And for more information about the Mexican Canyon Trestle as well as other awesome New Mexico adventures, head on over to thatadventurelife.com.